There we go.
Okay. Eran, the floor is yours.
Okay. Um, hey, everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about this low latency audio solution that we've been working on, deploying it here at MIT. The idea is that under very specific configurations, it actually is possible to play simultaneously with each other over the internet. This is obviously not possible in Zoom, as you've probably all discovered very quickly if you've tried it. Um, but um, but it turns out that there are situations that allow you to play remotely and play together. Uh, the basic theory behind it is that even if you're in the same room, it takes time for sound to travel from your instrument to the other person's ears. And if you're, say, 10 feet apart, um, if you calculate the speed of sound travel, it turns out that sound travels at about 1 foot per millisecond. So if you're 10 feet apart, that means it takes about 10 milliseconds for the sound to travel. And that doesn't seem to bother us at all. In fact, we can play 10 feet apart or 20 feet apart. By the time you get to about 30 feet apart, it starts to become a little bit problematic. Actually, you start noticing that difference. And in fact, if you're in an orchestra, you know, you're very well might be more than 30 feet apart from other musicians. So it turns out the conductor actually is useful for keeping everyone together, as it turns out, in those situations. But why that's interesting, that number, sort of 30 milliseconds, 25 milliseconds, 20 milliseconds, somewhere in that ballpark, is that we can actually get audio to travel from point A to point B in that amount of time or less, even though we're further apart. Because if you use the right kind of connections and internet technologies and blah, 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 you can kind of get that to work, which is pretty exciting. So there's a number of platforms or products out there that are trying to do this kind of thing. You might have seen some of them. One of them is called Jam Kazam, and one is called Jamulus, and there's one called SoundJack. And we've looked at a few of them, and and there's one called Jack Trip, I think. But we're going to try using SoundJack here at MIT. It's software that runs in a browser. So the interface, like the UI that you use to control it, is in a browser. And then the actual connection to the hardware happens either on your computer, or it can happen with this box that here, it looks kind of like this. This is a Raspberry Pi in an enclosure. This, we're calling this the FMB, the Fast Music Box. So if this is connected to the internet and connected to a microphone and headphones, then you can get this to work as well. So just kind of to step back a little bit, in terms of how we're going to play and rehearse and perform this semester, there's a bunch of different ways where that can happen, and I think your instructors will be kind of telling you about that, or maybe you've already talked about it. Certainly there's some cases where if people are here at MIT, maybe they can actually play in person with the right kind of social distancing rules and masks in place and all that. But there's cases where maybe that can't happen. Like, for example, wind players it might be not as safe to play on wind instruments as on string or piano. And certainly there's people who are not at MIT. And so the idea behind what we're setting up here is for certain cases, to try to allow people to actually play together, even though they're located in different places. There is a whole set of documents that I put together about this. And so I'll just kind of share my screen now so that you can kind of get a little preview of this. Can you guys see this? Yeah, I've called it Low Latency Audio at MIT, LAMIT. Haha, okay. Anyway, so you obviously don't have to read all this now, but I will send a link around. And this also talks through the kind of all the requirements of the technology. Basically, the idea is you have a microphone here connected to your computer, going through the internet, arriving at another computer, and then going out the speakers. And you want this whole thing to happen really, really fast as possible, ideally in 25 milliseconds or less. And it turns out that if everything is wired and you have a good microphone and it's connected to your computer using a USB cable, and your computer doesn't go through Wi-Fi, but actually is hardwired to a network jack. And the same thing happens on this thing. You're hardwired to a network jack and go out through headphones or speakers, and everything is nice and tight. Then this could happen in, say, 25 milliseconds. But one of the big issues is here, the network part. That obviously creates a huge amount of variability in how fast things can travel across the network. The nice thing here at MIT is that if you are at MIT, but you still need to play distanced in different rooms, that can work great, because MIT is a gigantic network and it's like a huge LAN, and the amount of time it takes for signals to travel across the MIT network is super small, like 1 or 2 milliseconds. So that's really good. If you are not at MIT, but you live next to or kind of within some number of miles around someone else, maybe the amount of time it takes to travel through this network is low enough that it can still work. And generally what we found is that the translation from microphone through the computer, if the oh, sorry, my fast music box is talking to me here. If you go from if you have a pretty good setup and you go from microphone to the computer to where it just leaves your computer, and that happens, say, in about 5 milliseconds. And similarly here, if on the back end it happens in 5 milliseconds, then you have 15 milliseconds of travel time on the network. And I think that can happen, for example, from certainly within the Boston area. Boston to New York could happen. If there's a group and they're all in California, that might happen, or if everyone's in Texas, or basically some location that's kind of nearby. I think the thing we're looking at now is probably within 400 to 500 mile radius, it could work. Anything more than that probably will not work. So, for example, Boston to California will not work, and anywhere in the United States to other countries will also not work. It's just the amount of time, the distance is too far, and you run into speed of light issues. Those haven't been solved yet. So what I'd like you guys to do is to read this document where I go through kind of everything that you need to know in order for this technology to work. The reasons it's important to know all the technical details is because we're so close to the edge here of what's possible. I think it's actually important for you to understand how this all works. So that's what this document is about. The connections that you make, or that I've talked about for now, are just from point A to point B. So if you have a duet and you can play that works just fine. If you have a trio, then in this kind of connection, every person has to connect to every other person, which is not too bad. You can see here, if you have a quartet, like a string quartet or a piano quartet, now every person has to connect to every other person, and it gets a little more complicated. And obviously, if you have more members in the group, it can get, the number of connections increases even more, and then that becomes kind of tricky. So another thing we're looking at deploying is a client-server model, which looks like this, where every person connects to a server, and then that server essentially mixes all the audio and provides all the audio back to everyone else. So you have to just make one connection. The downside is that there are, as you can see here, for every person, there's actually 2 network hops. So if you're over here at A and you want to connect to D, then you connect to the server and then to D. And so that means that it's essentially twice as much network latency. Okay, so but we're deploying some of these servers at MIT, these sort of mixed servers, and The nice thing about a mix server is that it will potentially allow for more than 4 or 5 players, maybe even up to 10. I don't know. We've never tried it. I don't know if many people have tried it. We're definitely kind of on the bleeding edge over here. Right. So that's that. The SoundJack program that I was telling you about, like I said, runs in a browser. This kind of explains a little bit how it works. And there's 2 ways to use it. One is that you can use it with your computer, and then you would plug in a USB microphone and headphones into your computer. Or if it turns out your computer is not fast enough or not configured properly enough or something like that, you can use this hardware device. And we have a few of those lying around as well. Right, and then in this document, I basically set up this page over here. So if you go to this page, there are detailed instructions on what to do and how to set this up. Okay, so I set up a Slack channel. So everyone who is interested in this stuff should join the Slack channel. That's where we'll be able to help each other out with setup issues. You have to sign up for a SoundJack account on the SoundJack website. It looks kind of like this. Here's the homepage. Let's see. Yeah, okay, public. Yeah, so you create an account so you can log in and log out and all that. And then there's this thing called public stage. And when you click on that, then you can see, it takes a little while to kind of get going, but there it is. Let's make this a little bigger. So I'm not going to go into all the settings here, but suffice it to say that this is where you configure things. You can see here I have my Scarlett USB audio interface. That's this thing, okay, and that's connected to this box over here, okay, and then the microphone and headphones would connect into that box. And these are all the different people who are on SoundJack right now. Here I am. Whoops, where did I go? Right there. Okay. If I press the play button on any one of these people, I will make a connection to them, and they have to accept. You know, it's like making a phone call, and they say, "Yes, I want to connect." And that's how you establish a connection. There's a lot of details about what all this stuff means, and I'm not going to go over it right now, but just kind of giving you a quick overview of how this works. So, for example, if I had a trio, and it was me and 2 other people, I would connect to one of the people, and then to the other person. Then that gives me a connection to those 2, and then those 2 people would have to connect to each other, and now we've just formed a trio connection like that. If we connect to a server, I think there's some examples here. Like, for example, this test server. So if I connect to the test server and a bunch of other people connect to this test server, then we all can hear each other. So that's how that will work. Let me go back to the page I was on. The setup instructions. Okay. Yeah, so make an account and all that. If you're at home, if you're not at MIT, you will need to set up what's known as port forwarding. Because SoundJack and all these applications use what's known as UDP messaging or UDP packets instead of TCP, those travel across the internet essentially faster, in the sense that they get from point A to B much faster, but sometimes there's firewalls that get in the way, or various situations that need to that can cause those messages not to arrive. One of the things you need to do if you're at home is to go to your router setting and open up port 50050 and have it port forward to your computer. So there's instructions in here on how to do that. Then you can kind of run a first test. There's a bunch of ways to kind of test this by yourself. So after you set up the account and your computer is set up, you can essentially try a test with just to make sure that it all works. You can also connect to a mirror server, which will just bounce audio back to yourself, and you can actually hear yourself having the audio go back and forth across across the internet. A whole bunch of settings here, which I explain. But then this is one of the important issues also, is that you will most likely need extra hardware for this to work well, okay? The most important thing is that you need an Ethernet cable, and your computer has to plug in directly to your Ethernet cable. So if you're only using Wi-Fi with your computer, that's not going to be good enough. You will need to actually get a dongle that can get your computer to plug in to the wall. Then the other thing that needs to happen is that you need some kind of USB microphone situation. And here, actually, I'll stop sharing so you can see an example of what I have. Okay, so see this thing? This is a USB microphone, has a USB cable over here, and that's connected. It can be connected to my computer, or in this particular case, it's connected to the fast music box. The neat thing about this microphone is that it also has a headphone jack. Okay, so this is an input and an output device. Some of you might have these snowball microphones from last year, but those I think are microphone only. But what you ideally want is something that's both microphone for input and audio for output, right? So I plug this in, and then I have my headphones. Everyone should be listening through headphones with this, just so that we don't get feedback using this system. So that is an important thing to have. Now, depending on what you might have, if you already have something like that, great. If not, then I think MIT can help to some degree to purchase what you need. Kuko, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, if I turn on my microphone.
Yeah, we can hear you. You're good.
So yeah, we'll implement a system for providing the microphones, cables, and adapters that you might need. I have to put a spreadsheet together to organize it, and we'll at some point, probably by the end of next week, we'll send a form to all of you and see what you got and what is that you need. So we still need to organize that, but basically the two main elements that you need is a cable that you might have a network cable around your house. And if you have a USB mic that we already gave you last spring, we'll try to use that and the headphones out of your computer. We'll start doing tests with what you have, and then once you, if you have already a USB mic from last semester and you know of somebody else that has all that already, and you can get a network cable to plug in directly to your router, you should start signing in and doing tests with your co-students, with your friends, and see how it goes. And you know, we'll keep tab. If you join the Slack channel, we'll keep talking about it and see. And if you are in Cambridge and everything works fine with what you have, then we keep it as that. If you're having trouble and the latency is huge, just because you're using a headphone and a USB mic that maybe is not that good, then we'll supply whatever we can. At this moment, the good microphones, the microphones that we spec, they are all out of stock, so we cannot give you anything. We want to, but we can't, because we can't find things on the stores. So we'll try with what we have. It's good for you to do it and start the motion of going through the application. So as soon as Eran shares his documentation, then you can start going ahead and sign in and try the experimenting with your friends, with your other players in the group, and see what you can get, and then from there we'll take it from there. I think that's basically it from my end.
Yeah.
Now, there are other things, there are other scenarios, sorry, Eran, that I am setting up some of the rooms for 364 and Killian Hall. I am setting them up for up to a piano quintet to play in person, socially distant, and have the music instructor be at home, and we'll connect that through Zoom. There's no issue with the latency there because everybody that is playing is in the same room. That's one scenario that is going to be ready by the second week of September on those two rooms. Other scenario is like, for example, a wind player with piano accompaniment. They cannot be in the same room, but they could be in Killian Hall. We have two other rooms in the space that could be used. One is the control room, and one is the dressing room downstairs. So I am planning, and this is mainly tailored to the jazz ensembles, the jazz combos or AMP jazz, which normally is a rhythm section plus one horn player and a singer or two horn players. So I'm going to set up the sound system in order to, I'm going to run cables downstairs and upstairs, and I'm going to put monitors and microphones in, so you just close the doors and you can play. It's like a recording studio, and you are located in a booth if you're the wind player or the singer. So anybody that needs piano accompaniment and it's a wind player, that would be a solution, and there is no latency on that because it's through a sound system, it's through a mixer and stuff like that. I will have to give total instructions how to use it because things, I won't be there to turn on and off things. So we'll have to develop a system if somebody uses it that way. And all that sound system is programmable, so I can set presets for each situation, for each scenario. So that's something that I will be working starting probably middle of next week. No, 2 weeks from now. Yeah, hopefully.
Okay.
But it will be available at a certain point.
Okay, thanks, Coco.
No.
So just a couple of other points. We've also set up the music practice rooms, the 8 practice rooms. They now have Ethernet drops in them. And we have that fast music box that I was showing you before, this guy. So we have one in each practice room, which means that, and this I think will actually already have a microphone plugged in, so it'll be all set to go. The only thing you need to do is use some kind of web browser. So you bring your computer, use a web browser to connect to that box, and just configure it like basically as a way to decide who you want to connect to, and then it should all just work. So that's what we're supplying here at MIT, as well as what Kuka was telling you about just now. The other thing to keep in mind for this is that it's all audio only. If you also want video, which a lot of times you do, then you can start up a separate Zoom session and mute everything. But you also have to be careful because sometimes the data that Zoom requires will actually cause problems with the audio, right? So you have to sort of figure out how you want to do that. Like maybe you use Zoom initially to just get things set up, and then you turn off all the video and audio so that Zoom is not consuming any resources. And then you have your rehearsal using SoundJack for audio. And then maybe at some point later you turn on video if you need to see each other. So it's all still very experimental. We don't quite know how this is going to work or what the best sort of methodologies are or best practices are. And I think that's something that we'll be figuring out over the semester. I think that's all I have. I will get you guys the link. In fact, I can put it in the chat right now. Let me just grab this and put it in here. Oh, okay.
The other thing that I want to mention also is that some of the groups did some recording projects last semester, and I think faculty saw some value, academic and learning value on that. And so if you are interested, any of the groups is interested in doing along with this low latency or instead of, or whatever you decide with your music instructors, I'll be available to help you support that. We recommend use a couple of softwares. One of them is Reaper, which is cross platforms, and is a online software that you can use, BandLab, that is very user friendly. And but I could I can Zoom meet with each group and do small tutorials or see what they're doing and help them produce a little bit more polish in terms of the audio. So I'll be available for that as well.
Right. Okay. So I think, like I said, I think that's all I have in probably Kuko. I think unless there's anything else, I think that's all we have to say about this stuff for now. If people have, happy to answer questions from anyone about any of this stuff. If you guys have any.
Well, I am wondering, I think we are planning to be in touch with our various groups, and some of us are on our chamber music groups list. We have some groups that are listed as remote, and they may be close enough to be low latency groups, and some that are clearly low latency. And these various options, I think, will probably need to be taken up among the group members, and then with the coach, and then sort of brought back to us. I think among the coaches we can formulate questions, but you two are the resource people for this, I see. This meeting wasn't intended to talk about Reaper or the recording technology that we're planning to use, but that's something that, but again, for those people who don't know you, you are the resource people for, through the coach, go directly, please, to your listed coach, and we'll take it up with these two people who can help us. And is there did you mention there's a Slack channel or something somewhere, that chat Slack?
Oh yeah, let me put that in here too. Where did it go?
Isn't that on your document, Eran?
It is. I just want to copy it here so I can just put it in here if people just want to kind of join that already. So mitlamit.slack.com is the Slack channel, but it's also in the, so the main document I sent then links to a kind of a specific set of instructions, and that one tells you how to sign up for Slack as well.
I see that Sylvia had a question.
Yeah, it's not directly about the low latency software, but I was just wondering if like there are certain configurations of groups that are not allowed to meet on campus. Like, does any group that has a WIN player, does that exclude them from meeting in person on campus, or is that still unclear?
Sylvia, I'm going to speak to that. What we are imagining is that most of your rehearsals will be low latency if you're on campus, if everyone has access to campus. And I believe that, let's see, your group, yes, does have, everybody has access. But with, I'm going to say a lot of distance, more than we originally thought. We're using about 12 feet at the conservatory. 12 feet distance, you could have the clarinetist in the room with you 15 to 30 minutes. And then you got to leave the room and air it out. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. That's good to know.
I wonder if for her scenario, since it's 3 strings plus a clarinet, is a situation like Killian possible, where the string players are in the main hall and then the clarinetist is in the...
Yes, I think so. That's very possible. And there's a window in the control room. I'm going to have to clear up all the equipment, but I'll set it up, yeah, that way.
I have a question, or I have 2 questions, sorry. The first one is sort of like for the first 2 weeks of the fall, my group is going to be on campus, but we all have to quarantine for 2 weeks. So I wonder, does this mean that even if we sort of didn't plan on using this low latency tech for the semester, maybe we should get this set up ASAP because, you know, we're starting on the first week?
I think so. I mean, if you don't mind signing up and trying it. And also, I don't know if you all have microphones, USB microphones, but I assume some of you might from last semester. Yeah, I mean, that will give you a head start for sure.
Okay, and then my second question is, it's kind of a dumb one about the technology of it. So SoundJack, the user interface is online, but this is only like an audio thing, I assume? Or does this also include like video? Like if I'm playing remotely with my friends, do I also have to like open Zoom and be in a Zoom call at the same time as this other thing is running? Sorry, I know nothing about.
Right. So, So SoundJack is primarily designed for audio only. And yeah, you access the UI, like the interface is through a browser, but the browser doesn't actually do the work. It turns out that the work is being done by this engine that runs in the background on your computer, or by this box that I was showing you. Now, yeah, if you want video, then you would then probably like start a Zoom session and and then connect with the same group of people with video, and then you can have that. And once you have the audio through SoundJack all established, everyone would just mute their Zoom audio, right? So that you don't have audio going through both systems.
There's actually a video feature on the site. I don't know if it is in the new site, but remember we tried.
Yeah. So there's.
But it will diminish the speed, so you'll have more latency. So you can use it to start talking and seeing each other, but when you really play, it's better not to. So you have faster communication.
So
yeah,
using
the thing Kuko is talking about is that, okay, even though SoundJack is primarily for audio, they do have this experimental beta thing with video. Okay, but it's pretty dicey and flaky, and you can try using it, but it might not work. And also, I think it only works with 2 people. Like, I don't know how well it's going to work with more than 2 people. So still, if you're planning on, if you want to have some kind of video connection, then I think you should use like Zoom or one of those things.
So so running Zoom at the same time as SoundJack wouldn't diminish the speed of the audio in SoundJack?
No, so actually it would diminish it. You know, in the test I've tried, we've had Zoom running and we've had SoundJack running, and when we turned off Zoom, everything worked much better. You know, so I think what you want to do is probably have Zoom kind of running initially just to kind of get things set up. And then when you're actually rehearsing and you're kind of in the thick of it, then I would recommend you turn off the video. I think if you just turn off the video on Zoom, that's probably good enough. Or you could actually just like disconnect from the Zoom room.
How many are in your group?
5. So
5?
I need to use the server.
So, and you're gonna use this only 2 weeks, right?
Right.
So I think we might have some spare boxes and microphone, and you can be our guinea pig during those 2 weeks. Because those 2 weeks are the 2 weeks that are going to be on campus. Once you are released to be free, I probably will be home. So I think, I don't know, Eran, do you think it's a good idea? Maybe just give them microphones, box, everything, and from day one and start trying it out. I think we might have the supplies. So if you can somehow contact us, and we'll start arranging that. When are you arriving?
So all 5 of us are arriving on campus on the 29th or 30th.
Okay.
And then, yeah, so actually I think 4 of us are going to be in the same building, but 1 is a different dorm.
But you can't be together, even if you're...
No. So we can't come out of our rooms.
Okay.
Or like we can't hang out of our, at all, yeah. Like we can come out to like use the bathroom and get meals and stuff, but otherwise we can't, yeah.
Well, you can leave the door open of your dorm and practice and feel through the hallway. Anyway, yeah, let's touch bases.
Okay. Oh, email.
Yeah, we should work out the details. I think.
My email is there that says Daglio, last name at mit.edu.
Thank you.
Cool. Anything else? Any other questions?
So yeah, so yours is an on-campus group. I have one on-campus group, and I don't know if those folks are on this call at all. But your next week or so could involve the low latency technology, and before you're actually allowed to all meet together on campus. So yeah.
Are any of the groups like blended, like some on campus and some off campus people that you know of?
Yeah, we have a couple of blended groups. In that case, then meeting in person isn't an option, so that group becomes a low latency group.
Might that also be listed as a remote group?
Yeah, if they're a mix of on campus and in the area, then I think low latency could be an option. But if the students are in different states, really totally different regions, then it becomes a remote group.
Yeah, we asked folks to be in touch with one another, and I think some of you will find out that, you know, if you're in the Maryland, Washington, D.C., Virginia area, you may be within striking distance, so to speak, where this would be an appropriate technology. So I think you'll want to find out your geographical location. I don't know how far 500 miles is, but I know that from Boston to New York is fewer than 250, and so, you know, it's 500 miles is a 500-mile radius can encompass quite a bit. So, you know, you call each other, do the math, figure out if this is appropriate for you.
Yeah, and just the other thing about this, it's not really that there's something magical about that number. It's just that is a range where it might work. and you just have to try it, honestly. You know, you'll get connected and see if the latency is low enough for you to actually be able to rehearse. So it's
And I think communicating your needs through your coach or directly to Andy or to Kuko, that's the business of the next couple of weeks, or immediate business, you know, because these things take time and the equipment can be shipped to you as needed. I think the same thing is true for people who are working on remote. If you're new to MIT, you may not have the USB mic or a cable, or you might not yet be plugged in to Ethernet. These are things that need to be taken care of and understood the group, and then communicated back to the coach if you need us to intervene, but or directly to Andy or Kuko, but you know, keep us in the loop because we can help. As Kuko mentioned, especially with acquiring equipment, they like to get this on a list so that they can make orders in a timely way and have deliveries in a timely way. So if you delay, then this gets to be successive, and of course it gets later and later.
So basically, just to wrap up, the equipment that you need is a USB mic. If you have one from spring semester, you should test with that one, and headphones directly to your computer. So that is one element, USB mic. The second element is the network cable. You have to identify where in your home is the router, and you need to run a cable directly from your computer. You might need an adapter for the network cable to your computer, USB, or Firewire, whatever it is. And what's the other thing? Oh, and if you have if you don't have a USB mic, we need to know your USB type inputs, if it is USB-C or A, because most of the microphones come with A, and so we need to send you the adapter, A to C. So it's basically, if you have a mic, you can try that. And if you have a cable, you could try that. If you need the adapter to connect to your computer, then that's available. We can send it to you. And this is for people that are not on campus. People that will be on campus and want to try this technology, we'll give it to you directly from here. We'll figure out a way. We'll ship it to your dorm room or something. So that's basically what it is. I could try to send an email over the weekend with all those elements.
And Kuko, I just want to reiterate or confirm that the headphones have to be wired. Like any kind of Bluetooth, AirPods will just introduce additional latency if you're using SoundJack.
Yeah, anything that goes through the air, we try to avoid it. Being Wi-Fi, being Bluetooth, being whatever. It has to be all wired.
Thank you.
I'll share the recording with everyone.
One more question is, have you decided or figured out what to do with people who are outside of the, you know, the range, the low latency range?
We were actually pretty careful among us, at least among the coaches, trying to assign people geographically. So that may be a consideration for just, you know, in putting people together initially. We're certainly mindful that that, you know, one group I have has people here in Cambridge and someone in California, and you know, we know not to recommend low latency for that. So, you know, there are places you can do it. The closer you are, the closer you are. If you're far away, then you have to employ a different technology.
Any more questions?
What we, that message I just got, I think from Margaret in the chat, from Melissa and Karina. Please send me that in an email if you can, so that and we'll follow up on that. Anybody else? Okay, so it sounds like we have our marching orders, and so thank you all very much. Thank you to Eran and to Kuko for getting us started and figuring this out. I think this is all going to work. It will have to work, and we look forward to the semester. A lot of effort went into getting us organized in the days and weeks prior to the semester, so that we don't want to lose any time once classes begin on September 1st. We don't want to lose any time getting started. And I think on your, I think Andy included in the introduction all the things that you can be doing, the communications you can be having with your coach about how to prepare. And since each group is different, there are things that people may want to suggest that will help you be in peak readiness, so that we can hit the ground running, you know, once it all starts. So thank you very much. Send us questions. We're standing by, waiting to hear from you and to help. So if there's nothing further, thanks everybody. Greatly appreciated all the work. Take care. Let's stay in touch.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.